Well, let's go to one of those politicians who will no doubt be at many of these events. Sammy Wilson is the DUP's MP and a spokesman on Brexit. Good morning to you, Sammy.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. It is fascinating when American presidents get involved in what is, let's be honest, an internal matter for the UK government. We had President Obama some years ago memorably telling us we'd be at the back of the queue if we voted for Brexit when it came to getting an American trade deal. That didn't go down very well. We know that the Americans have played a crucial role in sort of starting that peace process as sort of seen as an independent broker. But really, given the stance of Joe Biden and the Democrats in America in recent years on lots of these key issues related to the future of Northern Ireland, I'm not sure Joe Biden is seen as an independent broker anymore, is he?
No, he's certainly not. He's seen as extremely partisan. And don't forget, his record throughout his term in office has shown just how partisan he is. He helped to sponsor legislation which would make it more difficult to extradite IRA terrorists from America, where they had fled after killings and murders in Northern Ireland. He blatantly, on public, said that no Orange men were welcome into the White House in 2015. So, you know, he's got a record of being pro-Republican, anti-unionist, anti-British as well, of course, as we saw the sides he took during the debates on Brexit and on the Northern Ireland Protocol, and trying to force the UK to fit into the EU mould. So, I mean, I'm not too sure what influence he's going to have on unionists in Northern Ireland. Certainly Republicans will love the fact that he has visited here, but I suppose this is more about Joe Biden, his re-election attempts, and appealing to the Irish vote in America.
Well, I mean, certainly he does have an influence in the Windsor framework. We know was crucial to this visit actually happening ahead of the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. Diplomats basically said, look, here's the deadline. Of course, thereby, I mean, anyone who enters a negotiation saying, oh, this is our deadline, we need to have a deal by this date. Well, we handed a winning card to the EU there, didn't we, in terms of those changes to the Northern Ireland Protocol, which, again, when they were announced by Rishi Sunak, said, well, look, if the small print matches the rhetoric, then this looks great. The small print did not match the rhetoric. It's not great. It's not an improvement for the people of Northern Ireland in terms of long-term, national sovereignty. But there was no doubt at all that Joe Biden's imminent visit was predicated on there had to be some sort of resolution to that Northern Ireland Protocol issue. So he has played his part, but perhaps not in the way you would have wished.
It wasn't just a small print, of course. The large print, the headlines didn't even match the rhetoric. When we look at the impact of it, we're going to have border posts built in Northern Ireland. We're going to have EU law apply in Northern Ireland. We're going to have the EU deciding whether or not Northern Ireland is behaving properly in relation to EU law and the European Court of Justice, making decisions about that. So, and this is, of course, the result of a Prime Minister who claims to be a Conservative and Unionist Prime Minister, bowing to pressure from, partly at least anyhow, bowing to pressure from the Americans. And Joe Biden has played his part in that. And he has to accept the responsibility which he has in the institutions of the Good Friday Agreement not working today, and also in the political stability in Northern Ireland being impacted by foreign interference from the EU, backed by foreign interference by the American government, and unfortunately responded to by a spineless government at Westminster.
In terms of the chances of getting the Stormont power-sharing government and indeed the Assembly back sitting, is there any chance of that happening before the May local elections?
Well, I mean, first of all, I hope that he doesn't come here and lecture us about democracy and getting the Stormont Assembly going. He wouldn't accept any interference in the affairs of America by outside bodies or outside governments, and I don't think he should expect us to respond to that either. I don't see any prospect, if the government is not prepared to undo the damage which the framework has done, then we can't possibly go back into Stormont, because don't forget, and here's the thing, going back into Stormont would require us by law, because the courts have made a judgment, to implement the Good Friday, the Windsor Framework and the Northern Ireland Protocol, and that in the long run is going to, according to the Windsor Framework itself, lead to further divergence between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom legally, economically, constitutionally, and as unionists. Our unionism means something because we had to go through a terrorist campaign to ensure we stayed part of the union. And whilst the Prime Minister may not be as committed in those terms to the union, we are, and we're not going to collaborate in our own demise.
Sammy Wilson, a DUP MP, thank you very much indeed for joining us.